Hello. Welcome back to Pride Juice for another exclusive video. Today, the topic of the video is I survived Black culture. Yes, you heard that right. I survived Black culture. This topic is can be a little uncomfortable for some. It used to be an uncomfortable conversation for me until I reached the other side. And now that I'm on the other side, I'm here to report back that everything is gonna be okay. Okay? So last night, I was doing my regular journaling. I felt this sense of excitement once again. I was journaling, talking about my day, some conversations that I had. I had a great conversation with one of my mentors in the business world, in the corporate world. And it was just a nice conversation. It was a very sobering reminder of the path that I'm on, right? But as I was journaling, I got to just, pouring out my emotions, my feelings, the things that feel icky, the things that don't make sense, the things that, we might not say out loud. And I just felt so much better because I feel like I've gotten to the bottom of what this feeling is, what this thing is, what this unease, what this disease that I feel. And it always leads me back to, being a cultural commentator and, a cultural critic and really dissecting modern contemporary American culture and my place in it, using my experience, my firsthand experience as my frame of reference. And now that I'm here, I am so excited to have the courage, one, to continue on this path, two, to be able to speak my mind and say what needs to be said, and three, back it up with fact and, most importantly, with love. So I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna read today. I think we're just gonna have a conversation. So I started thinking about culture and my place in it, and what has culture done? What is the purpose of culture? Who is culture for? What is this American culture that we all live in? Like, where do we all fit? What is, the difference between culture and ethnicity, which is huge, right? And then trying to further understanding like what the purpose of culture is and how culture is a program. So if you haven't noticed by now, I'm super into philosophy of technology. Like, that's my thing. And I've been diving deep into sociobiology, philosophy, as well as behavior modification, right? So behavior modification techniques, protocols, practices, experiments, and so forth, from operational conditioning to behavioral modification tech, such as algorithmic platforms like Meta. And while I love being immersed in that space, I tend to forget that, the original tech, the original behavior modification tech is culture. And what is the purpose of culture? The purpose of culture is to socialize and to culture and program people who are part of the culture, citizens, in order to create a sense of group coherence for the greater good, for the survival of the empire, for the survival of the system, whether it be capitalistic, whatever ideology, any ideology needs the tenets of culture in order to survive. And so I was like, aha, see, this is absolutely related to how I'm studying tech. And I can see myself, when we talk about behavioral modification technology, especially on platforms like Meta, they say, oh, the users are the products. Okay, let's extrapolate that into the sense of society and culture. We are the products. And certain groups, certain classes, certain sexes, gender, whatever, are cultured specifically in order to behave a certain way, to have a certain mindset, to have certain values, so that we can all do our part and keep this system running. So, enter in Black culture. A little background on me and why this is such a fun topic for me. I don't necessarily adhere by any like racial or ethnic distinctions. I am clearly an American girl. I am cultured American. I am programmed to be an American. I have values of your typical American. I act like an American. And to say otherwise would just be ignorant, right? Would just be choosing not to see what's in front of me, the forest from the trees. So I'm an American girl. I grew up, a little background, just a little background. I don't want to get too into it, but I grew up upper class in the mid-Atlantic in New Jersey, surrounded by certain groups of people who are notorious for being able to accumulate and hold wealth. I grew up around those people. They became my family, they became my best friends. I was cultured with them, even, participating in specific ethnic celebrations with them. And I was welcomed as one of them. And so that is how I grew up. I was very accustomed to having wealth. I was very accustomed to people around me having wealth. I was very accustomed to certain ways of schooling, certain environments, certain foods, certain values. I was very accustomed to that. One day, my mother decided, who was a very successful woman of her own right, decided she was going to move her family. My parents had recently divorced, and she wanted to move and just, start fresh. She left her businesses behind, and we moved. And we moved to an environment that did not necessarily, it had a little bit of the upper class aspect, but it was a very mixed society. Where I grew up in New Jersey, it wasn't very mixed. It was, or at least it wasn't portrayed as mixed. There could have been a lot of different things, but everyone kind of portrayed having wealth. Fast forward, we moved to this new area, and it's a very mixed area, lots of, diversity and like low income. And my mother started reconnecting back to her roots. And this is where things get a little iffy. So my mother is Hispanic, Latina, and we always want to search for, in times of turmoil, in times of great transformation, in times of grief, in times of sorrow, we want to search for comfort. And so my mother continued to, in a way, like surround herself with one family and two people who shared the same culture, the same ethnicity as her, in a sense. Again, I'm not gonna go into ethnicity, culture, and the specifics. Y'all catch my drift. But yeah. So my upbringing changed. I started being surrounded by different walks of life, which a lot of people would be like, "Oh, that's a great thing," and I do agree that that's a great thing. However, there's a distinction that I've had to come to terms with, and this is what the video is about, is surviving Black culture, surviving Latino culture and how we use it's let me back up. I'm using the word Black culture and Latino culture because that's what people call it. I don't actually necessarily think that it's a culture. It's just not a culture. These are specific subgroups who are made to believe that they have a culture, and they don't. It's an extension of the imperial, big American culture that we all are enveloped in. And there's a lot to be learned in these subgroups, right? So before we call it culture, Black culture, Hispanic culture, whatever, this is not a dig at Black people. This is not a dig at Hispanic people. I am both Black and Hispanic. These are my ancestors. This is my culture, right? But there has to be a distinction made. There has to be a place where we're like, okay, how do we separate the wheat from the tare? How do we understand what culture is in the midst of this chaos, in the midst of this mess? How do we understand what is really ours, of our birthright that belongs to us, and what has been given to us, what we have been cultured, what we have been made to believe, what we have been programmed to believe is part of, our group of people, part of our, legacy. This is where the distinction comes. So I go to college, and instantly the world shifts for me. My upbringing was one where it was like, okay, I spent a lot of time alone. I spent a lot of time immersed in the arts, in academia, in exploration, in travel. And I liked that space I was in. I went to college, and here is where culture starts to separate people, starts to create distinctions among other people so that people can know their place. So I go to college, and instantly I'm pushed towards the Black Student Union, and I'm pushed towards the Black identity, right? Identity politics is huge, right? We're young, we're impressionable, we want to change the world, we want to take on the world. How dangerous, right? So this is where identity politics, which I believe is one of the major tools of behavior modification, comes into play. And although my mom always warned me, our mothers warn us, they can see the future, warn me that I don't have to be anything that someone tells me that I should be. I can be myself. This sense of belonging, this being away from home, this curiosity, this inner wound that I felt that I was out of place, I looked for it in being associated with the Black Student Union, being swept into the wave of Black culture. And I laugh. I'm gonna laugh every time I say that, because listening skills are 100% needed in this conversation. So before anyone freaks out and says that I hate Black people and I'm self-hating, this is not what I'm talking about. It's quite the opposite. It's finding the needle within the haystack of what is actually going on. Okay, so I'm properly cultured. I'm whisked into this need to assert my Blackness, to be Black enough, to prove my Blackness, to be part of this culture that is quite frankly made up of a lot of trauma, suffering, and BS, right? And this is where understanding history and the historical record is important. And when I say these things, it's 100% with compassion, not judgment. 100% with compassion, because I understand. And now that I understand, I am making it my job and one of my duties to amplify this distinction and to amplify what's really going on so that more people don't become victim to it. So blackness was all I can think about at that point. Being a black woman was all I could think about. Mind you, my mother is Hispanic, and that's a culture I predominantly like grew up in with her, because my mom and then her mom were my caregivers. And so this is where identity politics gets very interesting, because no longer are you able to be yourself. You have to start thinking that way. You have to start behaving that way. You have to start acting that way. You have to start dressing that way. You have to eat that way. You have to smell that way. You have to listen that way. You have to do everything that way in order to claim this identity. And so I slowly but surely started to see myself morph into something almost, unrecognizable. I was very pro-black. I was inflammatory. I was quick to condemn, quick to blame, quick to not take responsibility. I was cultured in a sense in college to be an angry black woman. And they succeeded, I started hanging around more people who were attached to and obsessed with this title, with earning this title, with proving this identity. And I slowly but surely lost sight of myself. Fast forward a couple years, I graduate, I transfer, and I go to a school in a major city in the ghetto. Perfect for me. I'm happy. I have all my peeps around me. I have all my people around me. Nobody can tell me anything. I am immersed in this culture. I fit the look for this culture. Like, everything was working out for me as a black girl. And slowly but surely, I was not exercising my likeness at all. I was not Marissa who has black ancestry. I was Marissa who's trying to prove that she's black. Do you hear the distinction? Because just because you're black, just because you're Hispanic, just because you're anything, Polish, Japanese, you still have the right to imagine and to behave any way that you want. It does not have to fit inside a box. Hence pariah juice, because I've lived and I was raised mostly living outside the box. And when they tried to shove me in the box, I was wounded. I was wounded terribly. And I say this, culture wounded me terribly because it modified me. It changed me into something I wasn't. It gave me false obligations, false loyalty, false expectations. It stripped away my personal power. It stripped away my self-esteem. It stripped away my boundaries, right? This is a very important conversation because it happens to me and it happens to a lot of people. And we, in our desperation to know ourselves, we hold on to identities. We hold on to the hope of identity politics to answer our questions that we don't have the ability to answer ourselves, or we don't take the time to answer ourselves. And it creates mess, it creates chaos. And specifically, even more so, it allows a perfect opportunity for something even more sinister to slip in. And a lot of times what I've noticed is that people tend to interplay black culture with poverty culture. And while a lot of black people in this country do face extreme poverty for multitude of reasons, both historical, systemic, etc., there are so many who don't. And so there has to be that distinction that being black and being poor are not synonymous. And while there's a lot of beautiful things that come out of the triumph of oppression and hardship from Black people, that's not necessarily what a culture is. That is just part of the story. And so I'll link below one of my favorite videos from one of my favorite speakers and authors, Dr. Amos Wilson. He was a psychologist. He wrote the book, The Psychology of the Black Child, which was amazing. And he was, he had an iron fist when it came to distinguishing between Black culture and Blackness, right? And he gave such a beautiful definition about what culture is. Culture, the purpose of culture is to meet the needs of its people. And that's all I needed to hear. Meet the needs of its people. The needs. When you look at Black culture, nobody's needs are being met, right? We're not educating our own children. We're not feeding ourselves. We're not healing ourselves. We're not, administering medication to ourselves. We're not creating pedagogies for ourselves. We're not doing any of that. We are cosplaying having a culture without having any of our hands in what actually produces and makes a culture. And so through his lecture and through his lens of identifying and defining culture, it made me see, what I'm dealing with here is not Black culture. Like this whole, that's Black culture is a farce. It's not true. It's an arm of the greater American culture to destabilize, reduce, and consume a certain group of people so that, disempower a certain group of people so that their potential can never be realized. And once you understand this, then you understand, this is not Black culture. This is an arm of American culture serving a purpose. Culture meets the needs of its people. When you understand the system, you understand who the elite are and you understand who are not. And you understand that certain behaviors, certain mindsets, certain values are implanted in certain subgroups in order so that they can perform a certain way. And so when I realized this, I said, Black culture almost killed me. And I see it hurt so many women, men, children. And this perpetuation of it, this recycling of it is so dangerous because people have been convinced that this is their culture and they must be loyal to it. And I'm here to say no. I'm here to say that is not true. My 20s was very interesting. How I grew up compared to how I lived my 20s. I never thought that I would make a hard right off my path, off the timeline that I was on, and traverse down through the underbelly of society. And that is exactly what I did when I tell you I went deep into the ghetto. I went deep into the hood. I have seen things. I have been around people that give me nightmares to this day. I have experienced so much death, destruction, pain, and all of the people who participated in it, who are born into it, who are raised that way, firmly believe that was their story, that was the way that their people were, that was the way that was the way the cookie crumbled. They sincerely believed it to the point where I almost believed it too. And because I have such a big, compassionate, nurturing soul and heart, I made it my duty to almost care for this sickness. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, I realized that by doing that, I was killing myself. By doing that, I was depleting myself. By doing that, I was putting myself in harm's way. I was withering away. I like to think of the story of Hades and Demeter and Persephone, and how Hades kidnaps Persephone and takes her to hell. And Demeter is just grieving. She's heartbroken by her daughter's absence. And that similar story happened in my life. And, you know, now that I'm a mother, I can see how much pain the way that my 20s unfolded gave to my mom, because she didn't raise me like that. She didn't raise me to be in these environments per se. She didn't raise me to think this way. She didn't raise me to behave this way. Where did this come from? Culture. Nurture versus nature, right? Nurture and nature. Then the nurture part, you know, the culture part took over. And I became lost. And I have the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual wounds of that experience, that decade of walking the streets and hanging out with people and just doing things that when I was a little girl, I never fathomed that I would be a part of, or I would be near, or I would be living in. So it's very interesting. Now that I'm here, see, this is the thing though. Once you give up, once there's so much and you can't bear it anymore and you break, I had a breaking point, and you break and you break and you keep breaking until there's nothing left, you realize you don't need any of that. You realize that that's a whole bunch of phooey, that we could circumnavigate that. We don't need these things. We don't need an identity given to us for us to be worthy human beings, for us to do the things that we want to do, to give back to our people, to create a new world. We don't need it to be tied to an identity. And I'm at the point where I don't really need it, nor do I see any positive aspects of identity politics anymore. Especially with, you know, the advent of algorithms and individual realities being created simultaneously. It's all just becomes a whole bunch of, this is me, that's you, and we'll never get along. Or this is what happened to me, look at me. Very narcissistic, if you ask me, you know. But yeah, so I escaped. I got out. I found my way back to my center, to the things that gave me peace, the things that I was interested in. I no longer care about what people think, you know, but I do care about people. And that's the distinction I had to make. And that is the distinction I had to make. And this is why I make this video, because I care. I care about deconstructing the system. I care about understanding reality. I care about understanding capitalism. I care about understanding racism and patriarchy, because it's so much more than they did this to us or this happened to me. It's so much more than that. It's a complex, interconnected, genius system built by design to do what it is supposed to be doing, which is what is happening now. And if we don't take the responsibility to learn how culture works, if we don't understand what the purpose of identity is, if we don't understand that the tech created from the people who created the paradigm of this American culture, that the tech is a descendant of that, hey, maybe the tech is going to propagate or encourage more of this division, this need to find worthiness outside of yourself. And so I am not here to say that you can't call yourself Black, you can't call yourself Hispanic. Do what you need to do to get you where you need to be. But in the times we are in, there is a need for an aggressive reality check. Because if we don't take aggressive reality checks, I mean, like, just look around you. If you've been to any inner city, if you've been to the ghetto, and there's all different types of people in the ghetto, so don't get it twisted, all right? But if you've been to where poverty is all that is, poverty in every way, shape, and form, it is a barren wasteland. If you've been to these areas and to these environments, you too would understand what a critical point we are in, and how the lulling to sleep, the holding of the hands, it's too late. We're past that. And so, as someone who wants to be a builder in this new world, and wants to be a producer, and wants to bring about a new rebirth, a renaissance, we have to be able to look in front of us and say, okay, what is not working? Why is it not working? We have to be able to put our emotions to the side and be able to see clearly with our eyes and listen clearly with our ears, so that we're able to navigate moving forward, changing our own paradigms, taking our own responsibility. So yes, I survived Black culture, you know, and I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of myself for getting out of that, and how scary it is that we can think we have, humans can have so much pride, and we can think that we're untouchable. We can think that we are living a righteous life. And meanwhile, we will be on a path of self-destruction. But because we have so much pride, we can't see the signs, we can't see the omens, we can't hear the mentorship, we can't hear the wisdom from the elders who warn us of these traps. And yeah, I'll say it now. I love, Philly's in my bones. I love Philly. That's the city. But it's a very, very, very dark city. It's a very, very sick city. The people are there are sick. They need help. They need a new way of living. But continuing on the way that we continue is not the answer, right? And I'm not saying like, oh, like this is going to change overnight. We have to be able to, one, see the problem, and then two, have the tenacity, to have the discipline to do something about it. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. I'm speaking truth, I'm saying what it is, and I'm making distinctions so people can separate themselves from the very thing created to keep them in that cesspool in the first place. And while this is not a conversation about privilege, this is not a conversation about, this is not a that. It's just, if this resonates, think about it. If it doesn't resonate, keep thinking about it, because these are facts of the matter, In another video, I'll do a little breakdown on this concept of this field called sociobiology, which kind of introduced social engineering, right? And what is the purpose of social engineering? And once we understand that we're all products of being socially engineered, we're able to see our shortcomings and our biases a little less personally, right? We're able to see these things and adapt and change and transform. But yeah, this video is a little quicker than the other one. I'm trying to cut down the time a little bit, but if you have any comments, if you know what I'm talking about, if you disagree, I just want to hear it. Keep it respectful though, because I have no tolerance for disrespect. And you know what taught me that? The hood. The hood taught me not to tolerate disrespect. You know why? Because if I keep tolerating disrespect, I'll die. That's how serious it is. So, like, share, put your comments below, and I hope this, touches you in some certain way, whether you are a Black person, whether you are Latina, white, whatever of those constructs that they superimpose onto us. Think about your position and think about a way out. Earn your sovereignty, work hard, figure yourself out for who you truly are and not what anybody else wants you to be and forces you to be, despite your environment. And I'm not gonna lie, that is a difficult task, but we can do this together. Until next time, it was lovely speaking with you, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao.